Welcome back to the Commanders Declassified podcast. It is NFL Week 5. Hard to believe we are here already. Your Commanders are 2-2, coming off a close loss at the Philadelphia Eagles. And this week, Thursday night, we take on the Chicago Bears for a sellout at FedEx Field. Hopefully, mostly Commanders fans. We got a lot to talk about tonight, but first, make sure you are locked in. That means you are subscribed on YouTube, you are subscribed on all audio platforms, and you have done everything you can to get us on Amazon as well. If you're not subscribed already on audio, go search us up, look for the podcast. There's going to be two because we had an issue earlier in the year. Make sure you find the one that's publishing new episodes. Click subscribe, turn on the notification bell on YouTube. Do anything possible to stay in tune with what we have going on. Now, we're going to jump right into the Chicago matchup because there's a lot to talk about. Last year, the Chicago Bears played Washington with Carson Wentz as the starting quarterback. And how a lot has changed in a year. We won that game, by the way, didn't we? I think it was 12-9 or something like that. It was something ridiculous.
12-7.
12-7. And that's the game that Wentz got hurt as well, I believe, and missed a bunch of time. So last year, we were talking about how disappointed we were in the quarterback, and our offense just looked completely atrocious. A year later, our offense has looked better. Most of the time, there have been dry spots. We talked about that in prior weeks after certain games. But we have a better offense this year. We have a better offensive coordinator this year. But we're going to start with the offensive coaching staff of the Chicago Bears and the matchup against our defensive coaching staff with Jack Del Rio. Now, if you're not already familiar, the Chicago Bears are led by Matt Eberflus, who is on the hottest of hot seats possible right now. Even reports, I think you guys sent on text that said he might be out after the game if it doesn't go their way. If you're the Chicago Bears, I think you're praying you'll lose this game because Matt Eberflus is not that dude, or as the kids say, he is not him. Their offensive coordinator is Luke. I want to say this right, Getsy. He comes from the Packers organization, which, by the way, I have no idea why they have a Packers offensive coordinator for Justin Fields. That literally makes no sense to me. And there's no style coordination between the offensive coordinator and the quarterback, so which is already a big negative. The offense this year for the Bears has been pretty stagnant, except for some garbage time stuff. They looked a little bit better against Denver, but who doesn't? Now, we have Jack Del Rio, who has been under a lot of scrutiny this year. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I don't know if it's 100% fair. I think a lot of it is fair, but I think people are forgetting. Last year, our offense was so bad that all we did was get 3 yards in a cloud of dust every single play. There was no chunk plays, no nothing. So our defense sat on the sideline for a lot of the game. It was all about winning the time of possession battle last year. This year, our defense is on the field a little bit more. We got some rookies in there. I think we got some coaching to do on some of the rookies. I'm not going to throw Forbes under the bus any more than he already has. He's a young guy. We think he'll figure it out. But I think Jack Del Rio is doing what Jack Del Rio has always done. At the end of the year, this will probably be a pretty average to slightly above average defense. But in this matchup between the Chicago Bears coaching staff, who have not figured out how to maximize any of Justin Fields' talent and has also encouraged him to run less this year, I'm going to take Jack Del Rio. Now, for more on this, Eric, the Bears passing game versus our pass defense. Give us the breakdown.
Well, as you just pointed out, the coaching staff seems to think that Justin Fields should be a drop back passer, and they're really not interested in utilizing his running ability at all. Not even like the threat of it thus far this season. Good news for us that they're not doing that because Fields, he played well against the Broncos last week. Their pass rush was not great. And really what they did was about a quarter and a half of really good football from Justin Fields in that offense before the Broncos kind of figured out what they were doing and took everything away. Poor adjustments. Our guy last night, Larry from the Bears podcast. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names, but Larry basically laid it out the same way. It's like, they don't make halftime adjustments. Things have not been good from that perspective. That said, there is talent. Justin Fields, I was clowning him pretty bad based on the first couple of games and not having watched them this year. Like I know in our text, I was sending all kinds of memes about Fields, and I was a big Fields guy right up until like week 2 this year. And I was like, man, this guy just doesn't have it. He definitely showed something this week. If they can give him a little bit of time, he can play. And he's got weapons. DJ Moore is having a great year despite as bad as the offense is. He had a monster game last week, and he's DJ Moore. I mean, he's torched us before when he was with Carolina. You can't sleep on DJ Moore at all. Darnell Mooney, rather, very solid receiver as well. He's that guy you always draft in fantasy football, and he never quite comes through, but you always got high hopes for him. He's a nice deep threat. He's a good player. Equinemius St. Brown, the lesser of the St. Brown brothers in the NFL. He's there. He can make plays. He has the capability of making plays. Not really a consistent player. Cole Kmet had a nice game at tight end last week. He's kind of been MIA most of the year, I believe, but he did come through. He had 2 touchdown catches last game. So there's definite talent. This is not an offense passing wise that you can sleep on, because as we saw with Denver last week, they kind of slept on the passing offense and they got torched. Justin Fields had 4 touchdown passes. So you can't sleep on these guys. But I think, if the pass rush from our team is on point, I think they can neutralize a lot of what Fields likes to, what they're trying to do with Fields. And if they're not interested in running Fields, that's fantastic for us. Just makes it that much easier. So I think we have the defensive secondary to step up and stop this team with the help of a strong pass rush. And I think week 5 rather, in years past for Del Rio's defense, just going back, has kind of been where it turns around. Notorious slow starts for the past 3 years under Del Rio's defense. This year looks no different. Hopefully they can turn it around, just they have. But generally weeks 5, 6, 7, that's when the defense starts to turn it around. So we'll see what happens. But I like the pass defense of the Commanders against what the Bears are offering. Even though, again, they had the Bears had a great game last week, I'm going to give the advantage to the Commanders passing defense here.
Yeah, and if the Bears decide to use Fields in a rushing game this week out of the blue, which could happen on a short week, it could change everything. It really could. And we have been saying this since the preseason. The way to get to the Commanders defense is to stretch them vertically or horizontally and then cut vertically, right? Like zone run schemes, things like that. So if Fields is a part of that run game, I would change my perspective on this game. But to this point in the year, he has about 60 less rushing yards than Sam Howell does. This is a quarterback that had 1,100 rushing yards last year. He has 123 rushing yards through 4 weeks this year. Something's not right.
Because if he's your franchise guy, you don't want your franchise quarterback rushing for 1,100 yards, because the wear and tear is it's going to kill him. But to just not do it at all is mind blowing. And I hope they just don't continue to not do it, because it makes him, making Fields. He's one of those quarterbacks who has all the talent in the world, but he's one of those guys that the key to beating him is making him throw the ball. It's not something you want to say about your quarterback. I'm sorry. It's just not what you want to do. But that's what you do with Fields. You put it in his hands, you get a rush on him. And if he doesn't want to run the ball, you have to have rush discipline with him, obviously. And we'll get into that with the offensive defensive lines. But if they're not willing to, use his legs as even a threat, which they haven't done so far this year, that is a huge move in our favor. That's going to make things great for us, because it makes them one-dimensional and it makes him one-dimensional, and it's the dimension that he doesn't excel at. There's a better part of his game that he can utilize that he's not doing, and that's great with us.
Yeah, he's not even on the Jalen Hurts path of pass progression, because Jalen Hurts was allowed to run until he improved as a passer. They're just saying this is more like the RG3.
What they did with RG3, exactly.
Yeah, it's bad. And as an offensive coordinator, to not really understand and recognize that just tells me you're not interested in winning right now. But we'll
let's let's not forget too, Justin Fields did all that running last year, 1,100 yards. They were 3-4, basically the middle of the season, and they finished 3-14. So even with that running, it didn't help them. He's got to do a lot more than just run. If he runs great, we're going to have to deal with it, because he's a problem when he runs. But much more is needed from him besides just the running. So because he ran a whole bunch last year and it didn't help him. They still lost a ton of games, and it's still happening this year. So we got to be concerned with the run, but I don't think it changes anything if he starts running the football.
Well, there's a lot more to it than just Justin Fields last year, and including what weapons did he have to throw to last year to help with that pass game. But we'll touch more on that. Brian, go ahead and take us to the offensive versus the defensive line.
The offensive and defensive line. So let's go with our offensive line, right? I think they're much maligned, and rightfully so. They're not that great. I think they're average at best. But the defensive line of the Bears features no real kind of pass rushers, right? I think we talked about, there at times where in the offseason we thought Payne was going to sign with the Bears, right? And that would have given them somebody to really kind of have as a force on that defensive line, which they don't. So they're not good at rushing the passer. But we've seen our offensive line and quarterback give up some pressures and give up sacks. So that's something we're going to have to be concerned with, because we give up sacks. I mean, that's just how it's going to go with our offense this year. So we can't take any defense lightly, any defensive line lightly. We're going to need to be cognizant of who our blocks are, where pressure's coming from, blitz pickup. Right, we saw Gibson run right by a blitzer this past Sunday. On his way trying to get out to his route. Like we can't have those mistakes, because any NFL team can put pressure, can sack the quarterback, and we can be in trouble from there. But the edge still goes to us. I think we're still a better group, at least a little bit more talented, but not by much. Defensive line versus their offensive line. That is where I think you see a bigger mismatch. We certainly have, right, the 4 first-round picks. We always say it. In particular, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, I think should be a problem against the interior of this offensive line for the Chicago Bears, which are new. Some of them are backup players. I think the Bears were talking about maybe potentially getting back Tevin Jenkins, a guard prospect, highly drafted, who could help them. But we should have the guys to overmatch them, especially with Chase Young and Montez Sweat on the edge. I think those should be matchup problems for the Bears. We hit Justin Fields a bunch last year in the game. So, if he does try to run, we've got guys who can kind of corral him in and make some plays on him. So I think this matches up well for us. I don't know that there's a whole lot they can do unless they really commit to running the football. I don't know how much they can offer as resistance to the defensive line. So hopefully this should be a game that our guys can feast on.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point with the run game, and Khalil Herbert is the RB1, which is such a weird thing to go with, in my opinion, considering how much time Khalil Herbert has missed. Mike, talk to us about the Bears run game versus our run defense.
Yeah, Khalil Herbert, he's coming off a good game versus the Broncos. And of course, with the running game, I know you said that they're not running Justin Fields as much, but he's still a threat with his legs. The Bears, they're averaging about 4.7 yards a carry right now. I think that's 4.7 yards per carry. That's 5th in the league. So they're surprisingly good at running the ball. I don't think it's something that they can beat Washington with. They're going to have to probably pass some more, but the running backs are definitely going to play a part. Besides Herbert, the rest of the depth chart doesn't concern me. They have former Seahawk Travis Homer, a rookie, and Roshan Johnson. I don't really, not really scared of them. So that's probably answering your question, Ali, as to why Herbert is the starter. Probably by default. It's not really anybody else on there that could probably overtake him. So,
what's weird is they've got Donta Foreman as like their 4th string running back, which is very odd because he can play, and he had some huge games for Carolina last year. So it's a little weird that he's that far down their depth chart. Maybe he's injured. I'm not sure what his deal is, but very odd.
Yeah. So I think Washington's D-line can dominate, like Brian said, especially if they can contain Justin Fields, which they seem to have a problem with every mobile quarterback. But last year, I remember them doing well against Justin Fields. Chase Young is back now. So, yeah, I think the run threat from him will be minimized as well. So they just kind of have to do it.
Yeah, Khalil Herbert is very good at screens and things like that. I mean, he can be decent out of the backfield. Like there was this whole narrative around the Bears this season that they built around Justin Fields this offseason. And then you look at the roster and you're like, there's no way they built around Justin Fields with this roster other than getting DJ Moore in place. Um, there it's also kind of strange for a team that is 1-3 to have an effective run game, but maybe that's because it's coming in garbage time or late in games when they're not really competitive. I don't know, but
They're 1-3.
No, they are not. They're 0-4.
0-4.
oh, they didn't beat Denver last. I thought they beat Denver.
No, man.
Oh man,
You were playing softball, man.
Turned it over at the end of the game to lose it.
Oh, see, I didn't get to watch football last week. I was at a soccer tournament. That's why I thought they were winning at one point in time, and that's
They were.
Yeah, they were. It was 28-7.
Yeah,
and they ended up losing.
Okay.
Yeah,
they're 0-4, and they
they're
Holy
0-4, and they're on a 14-game losing streak dating back to last year. So that's where they're at right now.
Yeah. And, well, it's about to get uglier this week. All right. Let's see. ROC versus DC. How would you say?
Talking that smack.
You know it. All right. So we got Eric Bieniemy, who I think for all intents and purposes had his best game as our offensive coordinator this last week against Philadelphia. And I say that because just situational advantage. And again, I didn't watch the full game, so full disclosure, I saw pieces of it. But from everything I read, and some of those things that I saw, I think we were more effective against Philadelphia than a lot of people expected us to be. Now, the caveat needs to be there that Philadelphia is one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL statistically, but we still took advantage of what needed to be there. And then in clutch time, we put together, I did see this, the beautiful drive, to bring us back late. And that was amazing. So Eric Bieniemy really kind of found his way a little bit last week. He had been under a lot of critique after that Bills game. And then your defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, I don't even know who it is. I should probably look this up. But I can tell you right now, he's not that great. So I'm going to take Eric Bieniemy all day over the Bears defensive staff. I don't care what their name is, short of, let's see, their defensive coaches.
I know
Eberflus is probably calling
the defensive coordinator resigned last week for personal reasons.
Oh yeah.
There was, remember, there was the rumor that the FBI had raided his house, which all turned out to be false. He resigned for personal reasons. So Eberflus is calling the defense right now.
That's why I couldn't figure out who their coordinator was.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that guy. Yes, the guy.
They're in disarray. They're in disarray right now.
Let's not laugh too hard because our trainer got raided by the FBI last year. So
that's
keep things in
on
perspective.
Our lads, they list Eberflus as the coordinator. So
yeah, we live in a glass house, is all I'm saying. So maybe just
I completely forgot about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so Eberflus is the head coach and now evidently the defensive coordinator, and they gave up a good number of points to the Broncos. I don't even need to go into a lot of discussion about this. It's Eric Bieniemy all day. And on to the next topic. So, Eric, let's talk about the Commanders' pass game versus the Bears' pass defense. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with the pass game of the Commanders with caveats that we have balance on offense, that we look more like we do against Philly than we did against Buffalo. Jaquan Brisker is the one name in the secondary that jumps out. That dude is a beast. He's a really, really good safety. Eddie Jackson is questionable. I'm not sure. Another solid player. Corners, their corners don't scare me much. I think our wide receivers against their corners is a mismatch, especially considering who's calling the defense. I mean, I'll take, Terry and Jahan and Curtis again over, Tyreek Stevenson and Jalen Johnson and our boy Greg Stroman, shout out, former Commander. He's hanging out there. He gets a lot of playing time out there, I believe, at corner. So good for him, still hanging around the NFL. But I can't, TJ Edwards, a nice solid linebacker. Of course, they've got Tremaine Edmonds, who can, who's a complete linebacker. Again, the talent is there on the. It's more about coaching and what they're doing on defense, more so maybe than talent, especially up the middle of that defense. I mean, they've got some studs up there, but I'm taking this passing offense if it looks like it did last week against Philly. I don't think the Bears have a chance against this passing offense. Again, provided we look like Commanders versus Philly rather than Commanders versus Buffalo.
Yeah, the Bears. Our offensive passing woes have come on the heels of pressure. Pressure has created a good number of the turnovers and sacks that we've taken this year. Without that, our offensive passing game really hadn't been bad at all, right? Outside of that, the Bears don't really bring that element to the game. And so at least they haven't traditionally. Now, we said this a couple weeks in a row. We played teams back to back that hadn't had any sacks so far that season or in their prior game. And then they came in and they housed us with 6+ sacks.
We're the slump buster for sure.
They're the swamp busters.
Yep.
That can't happen this game, right? That's the only way Chicago has a prayer, and you know what, is if they can find a way to generate pressure. So, they haven't been able to do it successfully that much this year. Hopefully that continues. And speaking of the guys that are going to stop that pressure, Brian, talk about the offensive line of the Commanders versus the defensive line of the Bears.
Yeah, it's going to be important for our offensive line to kind of keep their blocks. Like we give up a lot of quick pressure, and sometimes, the pressure can be more impactful than just the sack, because if that pocket collapses, then Sam has to now readjust. He's got to find space. He's got to run. He's got to do some other things that can cause bigger issues. So they really need to be stout against that pass rush and not give up too much quick pressure, so that way Sam can get the ball out. But really, Ellie, I think you nailed it with the Eric Bieniemy. It comes back to him. If Eric Bieniemy calls 5-7-step drop pass game like we did against Buffalo, well, all right, we'll just forfeit. Just don't even play the game at that point. But if he calls the quick game and he runs the football like he did against Philly, it won't be close. It won't be close if we do that. So we've got to play to our strength, which is the quick passing game and running the football. And then we take our shots when we can. Right, we take some bigger shots, some deeper drops occasionally throughout the game. If we do that, it'll look like Philly. We'll be just fine. If we insist on 5-7-step drop every play like Scott Turner did last year, it'll look like Buffalo. It'll look like Detroit game last year. It'll look like that. But the group has the offensive line looked a lot better in the game against Philly. I'm still not sure about the run game in terms of how big these holes are. Like, are they really moving people off the ball in the run game? Brian Robinson has looked better. He's gotten some longer runs. He had a 16-yard touchdown run in the game on Sunday against Philly. So hopefully we get to see some more of him, more 14 carries. Like, give him 20 carries. It's the Bears. Why not give him 20 carries? We don't need to see Sam throw it 40 times in this game. I just, on a short week, why? Just use your running backs.
Yeah. I mean, you hope Bieniemy doesn't fall in love with the opportunities that exist in the pass game for the Bears. They've given up 38, 27, 41, and 31 points this year, right? They can be scored on in bunches. And of those points, Jordan Love had his best game of the season, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, right? Baker Mayfield got the Bears for 317 yards and a touchdown. And then Patrick Mahomes got the Bears for, let me see. What did Mahomes do against these guys? 272, 3 touchdowns. That game was out of reach too, by the way. So, and then of course, Russell Wilson last week had a get-right game of 223 and 3 touchdowns. So the Bears give up a lot of passing and passing touchdowns for that matter to everybody. But Bieniemy has to remain disciplined and run our offense the way it needs to be run, and not just abandon the run for the sake of trying to go for the glory there. Speaking of the run, Mike, talk to us about our run game, which is essentially Brian Robinson, because Gibson really isn't much of a factor this year in the run game, but versus the run defense of the Bears.
Yeah, right now in the running game, it's good, but it definitely could be better. Looking at the numbers, Washington, they are 17th in rushing yards per game. I think this is one of those situations where you can't look at the numbers to gauge how a team is in the running game because of the Buffalo game being so skewed. I think Robinson only finished with 10 carries in that game. And even in the Philly game, it kind of sucks that Robinson's 50-yard streak stopped at, I think, 11 games. He had 45 rushing yards last weekend. Maybe if they ran the ball more instead of throwing it in the third quarter as much as they did, maybe they come out with the win. But nevertheless, like you said, we can't depend on Gibson. Hopefully Rodriguez can play. If not, don't expect much from Gore. It'll probably be the Howland Robinson show. And surprisingly, the Bears, they're pretty stout against the run. They're not like top 5 or anything, but they're ranked higher than Washington when it comes to stopping the run. They're only allowing 3.8 yards a carry. So it's going to be a battle in the trenches. I feel like I don't think it'll be as much passing as we expect, especially coming off a short week. We may have to run the ball a lot. So that's my take on the running game.
Yeah. Robinson 3.2 last week, Gibson 3.2 last week. The amount of times those two have the same YPC blows my mind in games. But I mean, I generally do think they're basically the same running back at this point in time. But and both of them had fumbles last week. I think we recovered the fumbles, but they both had fumbles.
Yep.
And so again, we can't give anything away to a team that doesn't have a lot of hope. We don't want to be that charity for the Chicago Bears. Our running backs got to protect the football. Gibson, especially, because that's number 3 this year, right? 3 or 4 or something like that for Gibson. So his leash has to be growing ever shorter by the week. But with Robinson, Philadelphia is a stout run defensive team. They just are. They suck at the pass game, but they are pretty good against the run with that line that they have. So, no harm, no foul there. You would like to see more attempts, as you pointed out, but I think against the Bears, hopefully we will. All right, Mike, what are the streets saying about this game?
The streets are stressed. We are hearing in the streets that they're scared about Thursday night's game. I talked to coworkers, I talked to family and friends, and they're really concerned with this game, not only because of Washington being Washington, but it's a Thursday night game. Again, it's a short week. Those games are kind of weird. One of my guys said he had nightmares from last year's game. It ended 12-7. I think it was Curl that had a stop on the goal line to secure the win for Washington last season. So hopefully we have a little bit more points. But, yeah, the streets are pretty bugged out right now about this Commanders team, as always.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. Thursday night games always have funky results and outcomes. That's just the way it goes. And so, hopefully the weather's good to not add an additional factor to that in DC. I haven't checked, but I'm hopeful it's going to be good. But you just can't expect the usual to occur on a Thursday night. So 100% spot on there. Eric, give us 3 ways to win, 3 ways to lose.
Oh, or as I like to call it, 3 ways to lose and 3 ways to win. We're losing this game if we revert back to that chuck and duck offense that we were running early in the season. We cannot be throwing the ball, especially in the first half. We cannot be throwing the ball 25, 30 times in the first half and just not running the ball. Balance on offense. That's what happened against Philly. Even if the run game isn't getting 7-8 yards of carry early on, keep them off balance, keep them guessing, and use the play action to win the game. You cannot go back to throwing the ball and expect to win this game. Defensively, if we lose our rush discipline, we have another extremely mobile, extremely capable scrambling quarterback in Justin Fields. We got burned a couple times last game by Jalen Hurts. Josh Allen burned us on that. Stay in your rush lanes. The most important thing, even, more important probably than sacking Fields, is just making sure he doesn't take off. Keeping him in the pocket is key, and rush discipline is key to that. And the last thing is you do have to get home. If we don't get home a few times, or at least get a lot of pressure on Fields, that stresses the secondary. It puts more pressure on the secondary. Fields has time to throw. You've got capable receivers in Mooney and DJ Moore. Those guys can get open. So if we don't get consistent pressure and keep Fields under duress, even if we don't have 10 sacks, if he's under pressure and rushing his throws, we're in good shape. If we don't do that, it's going to be a long night. How do we win? It starts with the big boys up the middle. Larry last night told us from the Chicago side he was scared of it. I 100% agree with him. Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne are going to eat tomorrow night, and they should eat. If we get pressure up the middle, consistently getting in Fields' face quickly with 2 extremely athletic defensive tackles against 2 subpar Chicago guards and a center that just can't get it done, this is going to be a fun game to watch. Again, we win with balance on offense. Rely on Brian Robinson's leg. as good as he's been this year, he has been underutilized. I'm sick of seeing Brian Robinson with 13 carries, 10 carries. More carries for Brian Robinson. Grind on these guys. The runs will open up. We've seen it in the second half. The runs, the 3-4 yard runs turn into 7-8 yard runs in the second half. Brian Robinson's that type of back. Use Robinson's legs, keep balance, get the play action game going, get some screens in there. It's going to be great. Finally, the best way to win, the number one way to win, play clean football. Another game with no turnovers. If you don't turn the ball over against this Bears defense, they do not have a chance. If you're handing them a ball on a short field, you're giving them that hope. Justin Fields can make plays. They have playmakers on offense. Don't give them that chance on a short field. Keep the ball in your possession. Do not turn the ball over. That is 3 ways to lose and 3 ways to win.
Absolutely. And I think, Chicago hasn't played a team with a pass rush anywhere close to what we have so far. So we can't become victims of our own pass rush. I mean that we turn the clock back on Fields because of our pass rush to where he starts running more, and then we get gashed by it. Rush discipline, lane discipline, make it happen. All right. What's bothering Brian? Tell us something about the game that will piss you off if it comes true, Brian.
The coaching staff, if it comes true and I see them sticking to their old game plans, not making adjustments, if I see another Jack Del Rio, if Emmanuel Forbes or any defensive player is struggling and they don't make adjustments to help that player, I'm going to be upset. If it's on the offensive side of the ball and Eric Bieniemy sees a player struggling, it could be Sam Howell, could be a receiver, offensive lineman, and they don't make adjustments to help that player or help the offense or help the defense, I'm gonna be upset because we've seen it 2 weeks in a row. We just saw it Sunday with Forbes. I don't even put that so much on Forbes. Hey, sometimes you just don't have it. Sometimes the other guy has your number. They get paid too. I need the coaches to step in and say, okay, we've got to move you off this player. We've got to try something different, change tactics. They let the same play over and over keep beating them. That's a bad problem to have if you're a head coach. So I'm going to be real upset if I see stupid, arrogant decisions like that from these coaches who are stubborn, who are like, my way is going to win and it's going to win because it's been that way for 30 years. That can't happen. Adapt, change, or die. Like, that's how this game is. You have to be better. You have to be able to do better, provide your players with answers, better solutions, and not just stick with the same thing that you've been trying that has been yielding little results. So that's the thing that will bother me if I see something happening like that and they just keep trying it and it doesn't work.
Absolutely. Fantasy players. Justin Fields, I think, is a start on a Thursday night. Like Mike said, it's Thursday night. Crazy stuff can happen. Justin Fields could start using his legs again. He could burn us. I think you start him if you have him in your lineups. I don't like any of the running backs that the Bears have, but I will say DJ Moore is a must start, especially if they're going to try to get him lined up against Forbes as much as possible. Cole Kmet is a start at the tight end position. And Chase Claypool, I'm just kidding. Claypool is absolutely not a start. Don't even consider that guy. I don't even know if he's even like active. I don't think he will be, but
he'll be at home watching the game.
Yes, he will, where he's probably happiest. On the Commander side, Sam Howell is an absolute must start. Every quarterback the Bears have faced this year have torched the Chicago Bears for 3 bills and a couple touchdowns, maybe more. Start Sam Howell. Brian Robinson Jr., I would say leave him on the bench this week, but I would say Curtis Samuel is an option to start if you are in a deep league and you need some points, because the Commanders on Thursday nights generally are pretty effective with Curtis Samuel. So I would say start him this week. So those are the fantasy relevant players in my book. By the way, I am undefeated in fantasy football this year. Eric, what are you, 3-1 now?
2-2.
Oh, so not
I either score the most points in the league or get destroyed. That's pretty much how my season's going.
And I just traded away Devon A-Chain because I was mad at the league for vetoing another trade I had for A-Chain. But
we vetoed like 6 trades that he had. I don't even care. I was just doing it to be a jerk.
Haters hate because I was undefeated. And I now have Jahmyr Gibbs. Hopefully he comes to life. But anyway, those are your fantasy relevant options. Take it from a guy who knows. All right, score predictions. Mike, let's start with you this week. How do you see this one playing out? Give me a score. Give me sort of a scenario for the game, if you will.
I told some folks earlier, I hope I have the option to go to sleep early tomorrow.
Ooh.
I would love that. And by that I mean Washington putting the team away early. Let's I understand we're a pessimistic fan base or whatever, but let's cut the crap. They should crush these Mountains tomorrow night, man. I did say it's a short week. I did say they are good against the run, but they're awful against the pass. Sam Howell is on a heater right now. I understand the Buffalo game, but even with the turnovers, it wasn't like he was throwing skyscrapers or worm killers like some former Washington quarterbacks. I'm not going to say any names, McNabb. But yeah, I'm feeling good. I usually don't go on a limb like this, but give me the Commanders 27-7.
Love it.
20-point dub. I like that. Okay. Brian, what do you got for score predictions and game scenario?
Score prediction. I think this game, I think offensively we do very well. I'm a little worried about the defense. I don't I think it's a little bit closer than it probably needs to be, but I think the offense does very well. I think they don't have any issues. I think it's 28-25. We win, close game, but offense comes away really well. Defense still working through some things. 28-25, good guys.
All right. 2 dubs for the Commanders. Eric, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Brian here. To your point earlier as well, Ellie, the Thursday night games are just weird. Coming off a short week, I think this is a game. I think Fields is going to run a lot in this game. I think he's going to scramble a lot, and that's going to affect the outcome of this game. But I think the Commanders can get it done on offense. I'm taking the over in this game. I don't know what the over under is, but I'm taking the over in this game, and I'm going to go 31-24. 31-24 Commanders. I think there's going to be some fireworks in this game. The defense will get better, but I think the offense will get things done. I think we're going to see a lot of points. It's going to be another fun game to watch. I think you're going to see a lot of that from the Commanders this year until the defense kind of gets figured out later in the season. But yeah, I'm going to go 31-24 Commanders.
Nice.
Another solid showing from Fields and company. I'm back on the Fields train. I got off it for a little while. But I'm back. I think he can get it done. Last week gave me hope. Put a coaching staff around him, and I think he can get it done.
The over-under, according to DraftKings, is 44.5.
Oh, I'll take it. Take the over, 100%. Hundo P, as the kids don't say. I just made that up.
Well, half of the Bears fans, they all want Bieniemy as their next head coach. They're already it's all over their comments. They want Bieniemy.
Bieniemy is either the Commanders coach or the Chargers coach next year. I'm calling it right now. Calling my shot.
They
head coach here, or he's a head coach in San Diego. Can you imagine him with Justin Fields? Shoot.
Yeah, that would be fire. But Bears fans, they want Bieniemy and Chase Young. I see that.
It's a package deal. What are they going to give us?
Yeah, what do we get out of that?
Eberflus.
Oh, wait, they can give us
Chase Claypool.
Wait, the Bears, it's ridiculous. Did you guys see it? The Bears have the number 1 overall pick and the number 2 overall pick.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. could be theirs for 10 years. That's great.
Only the Bears can get that lucky to have the number 1 and number 2 pick and still be trash at pass.
Yeah, and only they can blow it, right?
Look, Thursday night games so far this year, let's see. The first Thursday night game, 34-28 Vikings. Points. Week 3, San Francisco, 30. Giants, 12. Week 4, Detroit, 34. Packers, 20. Points get scored on Thursday night. I think, and I hate Thursday night games for this very reason. I only hate it when our teams play. But I think that Thursday night magic creeps in. I'm going to take the Bears. I'm going to say the Bears are going to win 24-22 on Thursday night in a game that just shocks everybody. I don't want that to happen, but all you guys pick the Commanders, so I got to be the contrarian here and pick the Bears. Plus, Thursday night really does bring out some weird, freaky outcomes. So I can see it happening. And then, of course, if Justin Fields does turn into a rusher and we start to give into pressure, that's the only way it's going to happen. So far, I think for the most part, the outcomes of Thursday night have been pretty much chalk. Eagles beat Vikings. San Francisco beat the Giants. Detroit beat Green Bay. No surprises there. At some point in the NFL, surprises happen. I'm not a big believer in the do theory, but this could be one of those weeks just because it's Thursday night. So I'm going to say the Bears win their first game because I don't think that they're an 0-17 team. This could be it. Short week bothers us. Physical game against the Eagles. It was very emotional. I think this game is going to be an emotional letdown for us playing the Bears after we fought the 4-0 Super Bowl runner-up Philadelphia Eagles, and now we're going to play the Bears. Womp womp, right? So on a short week, it's going to be tough to get motivated. Hopefully, I'm wrong, but I'm going to say the Bears 24, Commanders 22.
Nah, you forgot the X factor. And that's Eberflus getting fired after this week. Commanders, we smoke fools when it's time for a coach to get fired. We got Ron Rivera fired. Who did we get fired? Frank Reich got fired last year.
Yeah.
We can ball when it's time to fire a coach. That's the X factor. Sorry, Matt.
That's right. Justin Fields is going to throw the game, so Eberflus gets fired. But I don't even know who would take over on their staff if he was even fired. I wouldn't be the offensive coordinator, I wouldn't think. So there's no way that could be true because who was on the Bears coaching staff?
They're bringing Lovie Smith. He'll be back.
They'll bring in Jeff Saturday out of nowhere, just like the Colts did.
No, it'll be like it's got to be a former Bears. It'll be like Jimbo.
It'll be Ron Rivera. We'll fire him, and he can go right over there.
It'll be Wilbur Marshall will be their head coach. Singletary.
Yeah. There's just nobody. I'm looking at their staff. I mean, good God, I've heard of none of these guys before. But maybe it will be Richard Hightower, who is in his second season as special teams coordinator, or Luke Getsy. I don't know. I don't know what firing Eberflus does for the Bears at this point in the season. You're not gonna listen. If you're drafting a new quarterback next year and Marvin Harrison Jr., you're starting over with a whole new coaching staff anyway, I would think, right? So what value does it bring to let go of Eberflus at this point in the season? I don't know. We're not a Bears podcast, not for us to figure out, but I'm just saying weirder stuff has happened on Thursday night. All right. Eric, final thoughts?
I'm ready for some Thursday night football. I got Friday off, so I'm excited I can stay up and watch the whole game, even if it's a dud. I'll be there for the whole thing. I'm excited.
Those DevOps guys get Fridays off. Brian, what do you got?
Work overnight all week.
What do you got, Brian?
It's time to go above 500. You want to be a better team? You've got to win football games, and this is a perfect team to do that. You are supposed to put down teams like this, beat them, and move on to next week. That's all you got to do. Beat them and move on.
Amen to that. Mike, what do you got? Final thoughts.
Just get the dub, man. Oh, but also, so I don't know if y'all heard Ron Rivera's press conference, but somebody asked a question about Quan Martin and why he isn't playing, or the injuries or whatever. And Rivera, the way he answered, it was like he might not play. It's okay if he don't play. And I don't think he realizes just how demoralizing it is to see these second-round picks being wasted like this. With Adarian Mapp, and I know they're good players. I understand. But no, when you're deep at a position, you don't need to waste a second-round pick on that. I'm not a general manager. I don't work in the front office. Just using common sense. Yeah. That's all. But as far as tomorrow, just get the dub. So we don't have to talk about stupid stuff like this.
Tell him, Mike. Tell him.
The over-indexing on positions in the second round by Ron Rivera could be the demise of his tenure. It never makes any sense with what we do there. All right, my final thoughts. It's Thursday night, guys. Stuff happens. Don't be surprised one way or another. I said on social media this week, Ron Rivera said the Buffalo game was a measuring stick game. That was a fallacy. It was never a measuring stick game because we are not in Buffalo's class just yet. This game, my friends, this game is our measuring stick game. We need to be better than the Chicago Bears. We have to be, or we are no better than what we were last year as a team. We got to win here to show where we are. This is our measuring stick game. It's Thursday night, short week with a bad team. Put them out to pasture. Don't toy with them and then mess around and lose or keep it close. Let's establish our identity this week against the Chicago Bears. I also asked you, hey, the NFL says it takes 4 weeks to understand who a team really is. Does anybody feel like we really know who the Commanders are at this point in time? I don't think we have an identity yet on either side of the ball. This is the week to establish it. Let's see what we got. Anyway, that's all. Commanders Declassified. We are out of here. Subscribe. Tell your friend to tell a friend. Share the podcast with whoever will listen. Put it on your car, your TV. Listen to it again on game day morning. All right. We'll see you after the game, or, well, maybe we'll see what's going on. It's a late game. It's Thursday night. We'll catch you next time. Commanders Declassified. We are out of here. HTTCW. That's right, Mike. Peace.